First home buyers are struggling without help from their family. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee. We're going to have a look at an article from Domain discussing just the first home buyers struggle. They need help from their family to even get into the market, a warning from experts. Now before we have a look at that, let's jump and have a look at housing affordability. And there's two charts I want to show and a correction that someone pointed out to me. So, Sydney, you've gone up 565% from September 1990 to 2020. So 173 grand to 1.15 million. See these figures here? These are almost what you need for a deposit these days. Okay? Just keep that in mind. Melbourne houses are up 518%, Brisbane 400%, good old Adelaide 371, and if you had been in Darwin, it's only gone up 336. I mean, 480 grand. That seems like a reasonable price to buy a place. It's been worse since then. And apartments are the same, everyone. Units 430, 448, 328. So they're heading up, guys. So we're seeing hundreds of % of a rise in this. So let's have a look at wages. Now, what someone pointed out here that I was doing the % change from previously to how much it's risen. Because this here is the rise, guys. This is 565%. On top of this, that's how much it's gone up. So our wages in that same period for men from 1990 to 2020 have gone up. They've risen by 222%. And for women, they've gone up by 235%. They haven't quite hit the same level as housing. It's very clear that wages are not keeping up with housing. And housing affordability, this is a Lorenz curve. So above the line, this shows you, so here in Brisbane, if you've got 70% of, if you're in the 70th percent quartile of wage earners or income earners, this is how much property you have access to, about 70%, at 30% or less of your disposable income. Everywhere else, you got no chance. That 30%, it's from the ABS. I think it needs to change. Maybe now our culture's shifted where people are used to paying so much more. And also, I mean, this is a good one because it's working on disposable income. Because for some people, if you're, in the bottom quartile, if you're in the bottom 25%, 30% of your income is going to have a much greater impact to you than if you're at 80 or 100%, or the top income earners. Now, house price growth, it's gone up everywhere. And I would argue this has significant social issues to our nation. It's stopping people having kids. People are afraid to have families, have children, because they don't have a home. They don't have that stability. They want to provide the children the same lifestyle they had, growing up, with the quarter-acre block, the 2 holidays every year. It's not, a lot of people can't afford it, guys. It's not going to be the same. Australia isn't the same as it was 30 years ago. Not anymore. 20 years ago. It's not the same Australia, everyone. And, what loyalty are you going to have to your country when you can't even get a house, when you can't even own a patch of dirt in it? But that's for another topic. So let's have a look at this, because it looks like the divide between people who can get the Australian dream and those who can't is going to be once again dependent on your parenthood, essentially. What parents do you have? Did you pick the right ones? Did you fill out the right forms before you were born, everyone? It's your fault. So, first-time buyers will struggle to get into the market without help from family already in the market, experts warn. And remember, there's a UK political activist who was, on the politically incorrect side of the spectrum. He was more right-leaning, and he gave a friend some money so he could buy a home, and they nabbed him on that. They put him in jail for that because he was committing mortgage fraud. So you can't win, guys. You can't win. Soaring house prices are heading to a point where the only way young people will be able to get into the market is with financial help from their family, experts say. Well, here's the thing. If people can afford it, let them do it. I've got no issue with that. If you're a boomer and you bought a house and you've made a fortune in capital growth, a complete fortune in it, and you want to take some of that equity and maybe use it to help your kids buy a house, go for it. I mean, so long as people are sensible with the risk that they're taking and understand what they're doing, more power to you. But they have to understand that risk. And I mean, it's not like people have in some ways this money is just luck money, guys. Buying at the right time and riding the market up. So, the fast pace of property price rises means home ownership could soon be out of reach for people who are not already own real estate. Melbourne home values jumped 5.5% in 3 months on CoreLogic figures released this week. Sydney up 9.3%, and all capital cities are rising. This is why I think more and more the media that we were going through last year, where the RBA was modeling a 40% crash, the banks were all predicting crashes, between 30 and 10%. I'm thinking more and more that was done for political reasons to push for intervention. Or am I getting too tinfoil hatty there? Or maybe, that was the outcome of those articles. Because we know the Reserve Bank Governor, Philip Lowe, he doesn't care about house prices, but he cares about jobs and growth. And he was pushing for government intervention or government spending. And we'll have a look at this quote here. I'll just bring this up. Mr. Lowe reiterated, so RBA will not rise rates to slow their housing boom. Mr. Lowe reiterated that the RBA does not and would not explicitly target house prices with its interest rate policy. Instead, he said it was up to the government and financial regulators to address community concerns about soaring housing costs. I recognize that low interest rates are one of the factors contributing to higher housing prices, and that higher and rising house prices raise concerns for many people, he said. There are various tools other than higher interest rates to address these concerns, leaving monetary policy to maintain its strong focus on the recovery of the economy, jobs, and wages. I mean, in a way, he's right. I would argue, less incentives for people tax incentives for people to buy into property. Maybe if we could just, wean us off this obsession with property. Maybe if the government, opened up more land for development, reduced the requirements and regulations. Or maybe, here's an idea, in the building code, I was just discussing it yesterday in the chats in a video I did. You have all of these Australian standards, which are all requirements, because the building code is referred to by an act, which essentially makes it law, and then all the standards that are referred to in the building code need to be complied with as well. So they essentially become law. And you have to pay to get these documents that you need to comply with to be law. Significant amounts of money when a PDF should be free. Welcome to Australia, guys. Pay to know the laws that you need to comply with. They've got it figured out. I mean, it's a small cost, but it adds up to the cost of building, the cost of projects. It all adds up, guys. Every bit the government can make, can do cheaper. Because those things, sure, the government's involved in them, but a lot of it is voluntary time from professionals that write the bloody standards. Anyway, you can tell that's a bugbear that annoys me. So, one of the things I found really interesting, the idea that first-time buyers are now slipping into the past. The University of Adelaide's Director of the Centre of Housing, Urban and Regional Planning, Professor Chris Leishman said, one of the things I found really interesting is that younger people are not even thinking about home ownership, he said, or the professor said. It's now become so unrealistic, they think there's no point in even dreaming about owning a home. Well, we saw that in the Netflix achievement video we discussed, where a percentage of people think just getting a Netflix, of millennials, paying for your own subscription service is an achievement. And I can understand that. It can seem so far away. It can seem impossible to do, just grinding ahead. That's why, it takes baby steps and it takes time to build up. It's not until you start seeing your savings you get 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand deposit. Oh, wait a minute, 40, 50, 60, this is really building. Okay, boom, and then we're outbid by boomers downsizing. First-home buyers would most probably become long-term renters instead, with Melbourne's updated rental laws now taking a similar approach to those in Canada and the UK to ensure stable rental conditions for longer periods of time, he said. Well, is this also just our country shifting to being more mature? Like in Europe. In Europe, you have a culture of renting your entire life. And there are some advantages to renting, everyone. I know there's a bit of a stigma in Australian culture about renting, but it means you don't have to pay for the maintenance, you don't have to pay for any of the other costs associated with a property, and you're free to move. Say, just by chance, some state implements all these restrictions and rules on your freedoms and liberties. You're not tied down with property. You know, just if that may happen, you know. Like arresting you on the side of the road if you're eating food. Many potential buyers feel the same way, with 73.2% of those surveyed in a recent poll increasingly feeling they had been locked out of the property market. The survey commissioned by Real Insurance polled 5,000 Australians in February and March. The Grattan Institute's Economic Policy Program Director, Brendan Coates, agreed first home buyers would become much rarer in the future, with home ownership in younger people already falling over time. The ABS figures showed that between 71 and 2016, home ownership in age groups considered first-time buyers, 25 to 34 years old, fell from 57% to 44.6%. Those aged 35 to 44 saw ownership rates fall from 71.4% to 62.2% over the same time. Those are some big dips. These figures are showing you that our quality of life is decreasing in Australia, guys. We're not living in the Australia of the 70s, everyone. I mean, GDP per capita growth has been below trend since the Great Recession, since the GFC. But population growth is lifting it up, so the numbers look good. The long-term decline comes despite a bump last year in the number of first-home buyers, buoyed by ultra-low interest rates, government grants, pandemic-era stimulus, and cash saved from staying at home in lockdown. The current rates of first-home buyers have been driven up by low interest rates and stamp duty concessions and Commonwealth government incentives like Home Builder, Mr. Coates said. But they only help people who have a deposit. If you don't have a deposit, you're much less likely to be able to afford a home. Well, don't worry, just get that 2%. 2% government-backed loan. 2% deposit. For people who couldn't afford to save for a deposit, home ownership would become much less about a person's own earnings or endeavors and more about the financial help they could get from family. This includes gifts of money, inheritance of property, or being able to secure a parental guarantee over the mortgage. This was widening the gap between the haves and have-nots, he said. Australian society is changing, everyone. To even the playing field and ensure people were not left in poverty or paying rent in their retirement, he believes the government needed to act. Well, no, see, this is the problem. The government doesn't need to act. The government needs to step away. The government needs to reduce the incentives for people to get into property. Negative gearing, guys, drives up the cost of property because it's an incentive for people to buy, to offset the huge amount of taxes that we pay, to offset the fact that they're earning less taxes because of negative gearing. So they can boost home ownership, and there are ways they can do that by building more supply, or they scale back tax incentives for investors, he said. Even if we do, we've gone too far down the path and the gate has been slammed shut for younger people now. Demographer and director of Ethos Urban, Chris McNeil, said rising prices meant first home buyers were making more compromises when buying a home. I think the key thing people are going to find increasingly difficult is to buy their first home in the suburb or area they want. Many have been priced out of the suburbs they may aspire to live in, such as Thornbury or Brunswick, and could only afford to live in the outer suburbs like Werribee or Craigburn East, he said. Mr. McNeil did not believe first-home buyers will be unable to buy into the future, but said they would have to live further away from the CBD. Which I agree. I mean, it's going to change. So what are the solutions to this, guys? I mean, it's really quite simple. Our civilization, our nation's dependence and obsession with property needs to change. But that's a culture shift. That is a significant culture shift. Is that even possible? You tell me. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one in the comments down below. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.